I'm Matt Dixon, and welcome to the Purple Patch Podcast. The mission of Purple Patch is to empower and educate every human being to reach their athletic potential. Through the lens of athletic potential, you reach your human potential. The purpose of this podcast is to help time-starved people everywhere integrate sport into life.
You go to the doctor, you decide to get blood work, and the results come in. And the doctor tells you everything's fantastic. But actually, most doctors are just looking for the absence of disease. Are you functional? But you don't want to be functional. You want to thrive. You want to achieve. You're on a journey of performance. And that's why taking a look inside and assessing your biometrics and then combining it with the advice and expertise from the team at Inside Tracker, you can get an action plan where you can drive your focus on the key elements that are going to, for you, drive you to better performance in life, in sport, or any endeavor that you're chasing. That's why we leverage it at Purple Patch. It's a very simple process, and the outcome of it is that you're looking to go from good to great. We leverage it across our athletes at Purple Patch with meaningful results that are trackable over the course of the journey. It also enables us to get really precise and focused on the elements that are going to be individually best for you to give you the results that you want. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of it, and it's validating in the key habits and lifestyle changes that you need to make to whether you want to perform in sport or across the endeavors in life. It's very simple and accessible for you as well. All you need to do is head to insidetracker.com/purplepatch. That's insidetracker.com/purplepatch and use this sneaky code. Tell them I sent you. Purple Patch Pro 20. That's Purple Patch Pro 20. You get 20% off everything at the store. Alrighty, we're looking ahead today, next year. Enjoy the show. And welcome to the Purple Patch Podcast. As ever, your host, Matt Dixon. And today, we're holding hands and looking ahead. As we march into the holidays, of course, it's a wonderful time for reflection, looking back over the course of the last year to see how things went. But in doing so, also looking forward on how you can take on a performance journey that can lead to transformation. Now, of course, at Purple Patch, we do this in a really structured manner. We have a method that not only helps you facilitate the training that you need to get ready for the goals that you're looking to accomplish, but also develop the habits and also a toolkit around a high-performance mindset to help you become a higher functioning human being. Over the course of the last few weeks, we've focused on two main things. The first is what we label off-season, Q4 training and focus for, of course, our endurance athletes, but also anyone that is seeking better performance across any arena in life. We then, over the last few weeks, went into what we called the Performance Base Layer series. Yes, those elements that make up your performance readiness through the four pillars of the methodology that make up the Purple Patch approach. And that is, namely, endurance, sport, strength and conditioning, the aspects under the pillar of nutrition, and, of course, recovery and sleep. That puts us primed now as we get through the holidays and we come back and we are hit with the blizzards of New Year, New You, and all of those New Year commitments that you're going to make that are going to be resolutely forgotten by February. It gives you the opportunity to lay the bedrock for you to becoming the person that you want to become. And so what I thought we would do today is carve through some of the noise and put together an action plan around how best to approach the coming months of Q1. Now, at Purple Patch, we call this our build phase, but we're going to go through three main things today. Firstly, we're going to reflect on the off-season phase. It's very important for us to have a little bit of taking stock of what we have achieved, hopefully, over the last few months. We're then going to pause and think about success. What are we actually trying to do here? Now, we have a lot of different listeners for everything from world-class athletes all the way to people that are just starting their intention to go on a performance journey. But ultimately, we are unified by a desire to improve. But what does that mean? What is success? What do we see in our role as the coaching team to help you excel and succeed? And then finally, armed with that information, number 3, we're going to pick apart some of the strategies that you might want to employ in Q1 to help you not only have a successful first 3 months of the year, but lay the bedrock to absolutely prime for you to achieve your goals over the course of the whole year. Yes, this is a performance journey, just not a short-term intervention. It's all in today's show, but before we get going, we're not going to do Matt's Musings. We're going to do Word of the Week. Barry, you get to play the ukulele. Enjoy.
We like the way he thinks, serious with a wink. Let's open the book, it's time to take a peek. It's the Dictionary Word of the Week.
Yes, it is Word of the Week, and it's been a few weeks since we've done Word of the Week. But you know what it is? This week, we're bringing it back because we want to say a big thank you. Yes, thank you for a marvelous year. Had so many distractions to pull you away from your journey. The pseudoscience and misinformation out there, the promises of quick fix, all of the elements that can drag you away from the fundamentals. You know that what we like to say at Purple Patch is nail the basics. Well, right now, we finished this year as an organization, as a team, with a larger, more connected, and even more engaged community of like-minded individuals than ever before. For myself, Kelly, and the whole Purple Patch team, and for most of our athletes, Purple Patch is about more than a training company. We love to see you reach your athletic goals, of course, and in many ways, that's kind of the simple part. But our purpose is much broader than that. And to my mind, it's more meaningful. By chasing your goals, we also want you to improve your health. We want to enable you to bring your very best self to all aspects of your broader life. And finally, we love as you go along this journey, you take this commitment and you experience so many experiences that are out there that you start to apply the lessons and strategies to enable you to stay with a forward center of mass, to thrive under the broad demands of stresses that you're going to face in your journey. That's what we call establishing a high performance mindset. We talked about that in last week's show. We had absolutely terrific results in 2023, and we're incredibly excited about the year ahead. In 2024, we're going to be rolling out a brand new training delivery platform with a new hub for communication, community, education, and enabling us as a coaching team to get even more engaged. It's going to be for all Purple Patch athletes. We're also going to be rolling out a new education hub community offering, and that's going to be really exciting, but all of the news for that coming over the coming month or so. We are excited to repeat and improve on our current progression and, of course, get even better results over the course of the coming year. And so the word of the week this week is thank you. Thank you for being a part of the journey with us. We couldn't do it without your engagement, support, and belief. With that, Barry, limited public acknowledgements for you and your hard work this week, I'm afraid. Yes, your thanks for the tireless work emerges in the form of a big, fat, greasy palm of English sterling, mate. Well done, you've earned it. But enough about you, Barry. This is for the people, and it is time for the meat and potatoes. Yes, folks, it is the meat and potatoes, and today we're going to look ahead. But in order to do that effectively, we must pause. We must look back. 3 key elements to today's show. Number 1, we're going to have a brief review of off-season, as we like to call it. Then I want to outline how I view success in the performance journey for the year ahead. And finally, we're going to outline the work ahead, what we like to call at Purple Patch the build phase. And I want to talk about what you should exit each of these phases with, starting with off-season, defining success, and then the build phase, because this is all links in the chain that make up the journey for you to become your very best version of yourself, whether it's just you applying yourself to become a better leader, a better parent, a better employee, or becoming the very best endurance athlete possible. It all comes from the same place. So let's kick off today and let's pause and reflect on off-season. Now remember, each of our phases has 3 key words or phrases associated with it. So with off-season, it was very simple. Foundation, skills, technique. And those 3 words drive the meaning of all of the content and all of the training philosophy. You're looking to develop a foundation of tissue resilience. What I like to think about with tissue resilience is your muscles, your tendons, your ligaments are all built up so that they're really, really healthy and primed to absorb and adapt to the upcoming training. That's what I think about the foundation of element. It's not base building in the old school cycling vernacular. It's a foundation of readiness. Now with that, it's a foundation of you being a really healthy human being and building a certain level of cardiovascular condition as well. But that's not the primary driver over the course of the off-season. The second element is an ability for you to upgrade your technique and your skills. Very, very important. So that becomes an element that we've done over the last few months of Purple Patch athletes, where we've really had a focus with the key workouts being focused less on the physiological development, how hard are we going to do, what are the intervals that we're going to progress, and instead having a complete obsession of the mastery of technique development and application of that technique into skills. A great example of that would be some of the work that we've done on our cycling sessions around terrain management and how you can get the best speed return for whatever power you have. And of course, over the season, your power is going to increase. But if you know how to use it, you're going to go faster for longer. So that's the primary driver over the course of off-season in the 3 words. Coupled with that off-season has been a mentality of high patience. In other words, we've been explicitly talking to our athletes about not chasing fitness, not seeking validation of the worth of this training by, am I getting fitter? Am I getting faster? Am I improving my thresholds and all of the other physiological measurements that we sometimes have as a barometer of success of training? This is truly a phase of preparation. It's preparatory for you so that you can optimize your performance in training and the adaptations that you yield from it in the months ahead. So in many ways, it really is like building a foundation of the house, but not in the old school way of thinking about this high volume when the days are getting shorter and shorter and shorter, colder and colder and colder, as they are, of course, in the Northern Hemisphere. And this becomes really important, but that's not the only element that we've been focused in on off-season. Because at Purple Patch, we don't think about the performance journey just being built in your endurance training. We've also been thinking about the baseline habits that we want to integrate. So we've had a lot of people, as training stress has been lower over the course of this phase, really focusing on, okay, this is a time that I establish my, quote, performance base layer, a lot of the language that we've used over the last few months of this podcast, of really sound, healthy eating habits. Over the last few months, and in fact for the coming weeks, I'm not obsessed about massive training load. I'm not obsessed about getting fitter and fitter, stronger and stronger, faster and faster. So I can create a base layer of really healthy eating habits, of which I'm going to build my fueling that actually helps support and facilitate my training in the upcoming months. So dialing in daily eating habits, making sure that we're really, really healthy and doing everything that we can to try and future-proof against colds and other viruses by really healthy hydration, and starting to develop the habits that are foundational, prioritizing sleep, even some of the organizational, effective and management tools of training that we know are going to become ever more useful and important as training load goes up, but life demands continue. So this is just a phase of preparation from a physical standpoint, but also habit development and starting to develop tools that we are firstly creating a baseline of health, but also on top of that, actually setting ourselves up to be equipped and master our understanding on what we are going to leverage to manage our training over the course of the coming months. And so emerging from this really highly flexible and lower stress phase of training, the goal is for every participant to emerge into the new year motivated, fresh, feeling rejuvenated from the rigors of the journey of last year and really excited for the journey ahead. But in addition to that, real success is that beyond the motivation and excitement, you are physically prepared to handle your upcoming training. In other words, we want to optimize the response of the training that you're going to put in. And you've become more of a master of how you're doing things. In other words, upgraded your skills and technique across whatever is important to you. This is a phase of the year that is not where we are chasing race readiness, prime fitness over the course of the whole year, huge physiological gains, such as improved sustained power or pace. But, ironically, it is a phase that in many ways is the fundamentally most critical phase of the whole year. Yeah, I'll say that again. Off-season is not when you're chasing gains from a speed standpoint, but equally critical in the arc of the journey for anyone who is chasing speed in the long term. So in other words, you're not chasing it right now, but if you don't do this, you ain't going to get it in the future. And that becomes the really important component. And so for the sake of this show today, what I want us to do is just simply unite and imagine that this is where we find everyone. Successfully committed to off-season, not gone rogue and random, has developed a little bit of skill development and is primed to start training hard. And guess what? This really works. I wanted to take the opportunity when we talk about off-season, and a lot of folks that have a real challenge buying into the concept, retaining structure, making sure that you're still training, not just taking a break to spend time with family and friends, but engaging on a lower stress, structured technical development phase of the program to ensure that you yield success. I don't want to talk about a specific Purple Patch athlete, Carl Carrick, because he just posted on our internal community page this. One of his elements, Carl is a triathlete, and one of the elements he really decided to focus on was swimming over the course of this off-season. Now, this wasn't a huge time commitment, but he engaged not in trying to swim harder and harder and gain fitness, and instead spent the last 3 months focusing on technical development. He's a member of our Tri Squad, so he's not coached individually, but he engaged and leveraged the expertise of the coaching team, particularly Coach John Stevens, who is our swim expert. And here is his story, unsolicited, that he decided to send out to the rest of the Purple Patch community. Coming from Carl, he says, "We all have our own swim journeys, but mine took a giant leap forward. I'm an adult onset swimmer, and I put in several consistent years of training and saw my swim times improve, but then plateaued." I'm sure it sounds familiar to many of you guys, by the way. Now, my swim times were not breaking any nautical speed records, but also I wasn't last out of the water. But this last week, in the middle of his off-season, when we're not chasing speed, we're not chasing bigger fitness, I was absolutely shocked that I found myself with a 7-second PR in the 100. Then I nearly repeated the same time in a simple endurance workout. This was nearly a 10% increase on speed on a personal best that had not improved over the course of the last 6 years. Now, I would normally write this off from me just miscounting laps, but it's a little hard to do over the course of 100 yards. My focus during swim school, which is what we labelled the swim component of our off-season programming, has getting to the pool 3 times a week. Normally, it was twice a week. And while I thought I was starting to make some connections in my stroke, I didn't really notice over the initial months a marked improvement in speed until this week. And then, boom, it happened. This was very much a gradually then suddenly experience. And so I hope all of you Purple Patch athletes out there who hasn't yet seen the improvements that you might have hoped for out of swim school, stay with it. It might be just around the corner. Who would have thunk it, ladies and gentlemen, that skill development and technique would foster and produce results? Now, with that technique, what Carl has to do, and the rest of the Purple Patch athletes, is to retain a focus on holding that technique as now we start to build the fitness up, the build phase. That's it. So that's off-season, and that's a little reflection. And before we jump into the next chapter and phase of training, the build phase of training, I want to just pause and align ourselves on how we view success. What are we looking to achieve here? What's the big project that we're looking for? Well, there are multiple elements to this. The first is your athletic success. We want you to nail your goals, whether you've decided to compete in a 5K, whether you're looking to finish your first half Ironman, whether you're looking to win a world championship. Athletic success is, of course, important. But we think in broader terms than that. That's almost the easy part of this. We want to, by taking this journey, help you show up on a daily basis in your daily endeavors, whether it's family, whether it's work. Facilitate your daily performance. And that, of course, is built on great stable energy, optimal cognitive health, and a platform of health. We also want to ensure that you are investing in yourself. You're future-proofing. And you're future-proofing against risk of major disease, all of the major diseases. We're helping set yourself up for the highest functional living that you can have, so that in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years' time, you're not forced to hold the handrail going upstairs. You don't pull a muscle by lifting the luggage into the overhead. And we wanted to ensure that no matter how much time each of us has left on this earth, we have the best quality of life possible. But the final element of what we talked about in last week's show was to help through this journey you develop a toolkit that makes up what I'd like to label the high performance mindset. Because the journey of your commitment, your athletic commitment, your process of personal well-being, your sporting journey, that is the place that you can draw so many lessons that apply to every part of life. It can equip you to be battle ready, to keep you, no matter what happens over the course of the journey, whether you're thinking about work, whether you're thinking about life, whether you're thinking about sport, the lessons that make this up enable you to be adaptable, resilient, draw from expertise of others, keep you in a forward center of mass. And that's a key part of a high-performing human being. And so these are the elements that we think about, and I would say make up what it means to be a part of Purple Patch. It ain't just the plan, okay? It's not just the plan. So under that big umbrella, how do we get you there? What are the things that we think about? Well, there are three main elements that we can pick apart. The first is training. And as we launch into next year, the training to be successful in your time-starved life has to be integrated. We have to ensure that for every person we're supporting, we enable a program that can integrate into your life so that it becomes a part of your daily existence, rather than just an additional thing dumped on top of life that feels like suddenly you've got a second job. You've just got one more thing to think about. Because whenever it becomes that, you'll never, ever, ever be successful through the lens that we're thinking of. Best health, best sporting results, best ability to show up in daily life. By context, that training that we deliver has to be dynamic. It has to be flexible, because ultimately we can't predict what's going to happen. Of all the other things that you have going on in your life, the demands from work, maybe some travel with it, friends, family, social commitments, the need to rejuvenate and step away. Life is a living, breathing thing. It's not a spreadsheet. We're not building a bridge. And so your training program has to have some flex to it. It can't be programmatic. 10 hours, 12 hours, 14 hours, progress, because suddenly you're just forcing that training into life and something has to give. So we need to think about a training program that integrates into life, but can also dance, expand and restrict with life as all of the stresses in life give their merry dance along the way. And so our training approach is built around these principles. The second element of that is all of the key performance habits that we know foster the best leverage or adaptations from that training and also equip you to have stable energy, to have optimal cognitive function, to ensure that you're future-proofing against future diseases. So habit development is also a key part of being a purple patch athlete. Beyond your workouts, it's absolutely critical, non-negotiable, that you develop key habits to support the training you are doing, to foster better daily performance and invest in your future self. For every single purple patch athlete, we first aim to try and build a very robust platform of health or a strong physical ready state, what I like to label your performance base layer. And it's around those key elements. First, I want you to be healthy because you can't achieve anything if you ain't healthy. I want you to have consistency of energy throughout every single day. And I want you to develop a bedrock of readiness to then on top of it, you can layer training and racing demands. And so even folks that are chasing world-class athletic performance, they need the same performance base layer as me and you. And so that's a key part of it, is that every single participant in our program isn't just receiving a program, but it's going on a journey to develop a performance base layer. And then finally, through the experiential learning, the lessons that come out of the journey, that journey that you have committed to, you can develop a high-performance mindset. These are the traits and strategies that every high performer in any arena that I've ever interacted with hold in spades. It is an educational process, a learned process through coaching, and it applies to every aspect of life. It is amplified when you are also a part of something. A high-performance mindset comes to a magnified state with bigger results when you're not going on the journey alone. When you're a part of a team, a group, an organization with your buddies, and you're holding each other to account, support, developing an understanding, that's when the results become even more potent. And so ultimately, all of this is to say that your success can only be delivered and achieved by approaching your journey through much more than just a set of workouts. If you're looking ahead to next year and thinking, give me the training plan, and let's make it up. Oh, I've registered for IRONMAN Texas in April. What's my plan? That's not going to equip you to be successful along your performance journey. A, in what your time result is in that race, but more importantly and more profoundly, in your health and how you show up in other areas of life. You can't achieve that via just looking at a plan. It doesn't matter if it's equipped by EA with some black box methodology. It doesn't matter if it's written by the best coach in the world. What matters is that in order for you to be successful, no matter what your sporting goals are, I encourage you to think more broadly. You want to have, yes, a plan that's flexible and dynamic. You also need to develop management tools to work that plan. Then you need to create habits. And you need to foster education to ensure that you're focusing on the right habits. So I always talk about Inside Tracker, by the way, that can help drive a little bit of focus in that area. And then realizing that a lot of the value that you're getting from this is the experiences of the journey itself, the lessons. And those can be molded more through a coaching perspective, someone that has a 10,000-foot view, that's seen it all before. That's why the highest performers, both in a sporting context and as you rise through organizations, are much more likely to seek external help as a sounding board, as a source of perspective and expertise. And then finally, your results, you will be driven to better and greater if you amplify your individual goals and approach through what we know works, team. Become a part of something, lean in. Even if you're experienced and sage, be a mentor, give to others, help others. It's going to help you. And so before we talk about what's coming in 2024 with the build phase, whatever your goals and quest over the course of the coming years, I encourage you to set your lens and success based on the elements that I highlight. That's the same if you're coming to this show through the lens of an athlete, a leader, a member of the military, a parent, an employee. Pick your poison. Everyone builds success from these elements that we discuss. And so with that in mind, as we start to emerge out of off-season, now we get to think about the next phase of training, Q1. We're going to bucket everyone together. What's the title of this phase? The build phase. Think about that off-season. Yes, that sounds like tanning salons in Miami. Now we get building. It's the contractor phase. Now remember off-season, 3 words: foundation, technique, skills. You lay down the preparatory work. Now we build. And what are we building? 3 words and phrases: fitness, strength and power, skills. I'll say it one more time. Fitness, okay, we're building fitness. Strength and power, we'll couple those together. And skills. Yeah, we don't let go of the skills quite yet. Now, as ever, just as I talked about, your success is anchored in more than just training or exercise. And so we are layering the bedrock for you to excel as a human through the comprehensive approach. And so for triathletes and endurance athletes, what's the focus going to be on a training standpoint? Well, there are multiple things that we are going to place our emphasis, and I encourage you to place your emphasis no matter what race you're getting ready for. So for the athletes, what this looks like: number 1, over the course of the next 3 months, we are still going to have a heavy emphasis on the technical development and skills. It's not a short-term project, and we are still going to be patient that we're going to be talking about here. So let's leverage the opportunity to continue on the journey of technical development and skills, particularly in the first 6 weeks or so, all the way through till Valentine's Day over the course of the coming year. That's number 1. Number 2, we're going to do once a week some very, very high intensity work. What we call your VO2 max, okay? Your maximal ability to uptake and then utilize oxygen for energy. And what that is, that very, very challenging short sprint type workout, is it's a potential primer. It raises your ceiling so that then when you start to build your endurance and resilience, you have flexibility physiologically to actually improve more. Now, I won't dive into the details here, but it's a perfect time of the year when your overall focus on longer distance resilience and endurance is a little bit on the back burner to drive potential. So we're going to do some VO2 max work, very, very high intensity work. We're going to start to as well integrate some strength-driven endurance training. What that means for the triathletes out there, some low RPM, high torque work on the bicycle. So having your leg speed go slower, putting more muscular force and load against you. Yes, we're going to put some challenging work up hills or on the bike trainer. And that becomes really important. We call that the Purple Patch Special Sauce because for years we've been integrating this into our training with great success for our cyclists. If you were a runner, this would be about doing extended hill repetitions. We're going to do some short, high power stuff on the run, but also some strength-driven run as well. And then as we go through the coming months, we're going to start to incrementally, very gradually, turn up the training session durations as we progress through the months. And that's how we very patiently build our fitness. Now, the backbone of it all, in fact, no, not the backbone of it all, at the center, the nucleus of all of this endurance work for our endurance athletes is that we are wrapping all of these endurance sessions around the absolute central focus, strength and conditioning. And that's going to be very demanding and the highest priority of all of our training over the course of the next 3 months. That becomes important. But with that work, strength and power, and you can see how it is. Strength training, strength-based running, low cadence riding, high power VO2 max. There's your strength and power. Fitness, incrementally building it up. All with a very, very heavy emphasis on technique and skills. With that, what the emphasis isn't about over the course of January, February, March, is priming for race readiness. That's coming. Race readiness. We're also not, ironically, really seeking visible, tangible performance gains in the classic sense. So I'm not looking for you to boost your FTP or drive it up. It's all going to be happening. But I want your fitness to drive almost like sliding an envelope under a door. It's going to creep up on you. And we're just still in the preparation phase of stuff. I want you to have high power, the highest power of your life, over a short duration. I want you to get strong. I want you to enhance and become a master of your technique so that when you exit Q1, here's the state of readiness. Number one, you have a tremendous foundation of technique and skills. You are strong, so you have developed your baseline strength. You have an improved ceiling or power potential across the disciplines that are important to you. You're pretty fit, you're robust, so that means that you're ready to go and take on some early season races. But on top of it all, you don't have a huge accumulation of mental or physical fatigue. Some stuff's going to be tiring. Sessions will create some fatigue, but you don't have any of the more chronic accumulated fatigue. That means that you're motivated, you're healthy, your tissue is healthy, and you've got this wonderful opportunity. As you come out of the coming quarter, you have the opportunity for development, performance gains, big jumps in potential. Now, this is the intention of how we're going to drive every single Purple Patch athlete unless they're doing a very early season race. That's what we're looking to do. And in support of that, we then need to guide, because remember what success is and how we achieve it, we need to guide some other elements. So we're going to talk about that. But then in Q2, you're going to be harvesting the riches of your effort over Q1 and your off-season. That's going to be called the priming phase, when we're going to leverage the power and strength and we're going to get fast. For the metrics head, yes, we're going to drive towards greater sustainable power. We're going to have an emphasis on muscular endurance. You are going to be performance primed. So that's what's coming. And of course, we'll talk about that in about 2 months' time. But right now, build, 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 build. That's the training element. But remember, in support of it, habits. What should we focus on? What should you focus on in Q1 for long-term development? Well, the first is organizational effectiveness. I want you to become a master of training management. We start to incrementally build training. I want you to master the management of that training, because training isn't too high right now. And so we do that through some very specific tools and practices that all Purple Patch athletes leverage. And it's very, very simple, but it's hugely influential on your success and decision-making throughout the arc of the rest of the year. Number two, continue to develop baseline eating habits, very healthy, that can optimize daily energy, support the training load that we're asking you to do, and maximize the quality of your recovery and sleep. We also are going to develop and ingrain habits around hydration, both inside of your training sessions, but also more importantly, to facilitate recovery, daily energy, health, and performance across life. So really fundamental things. And a lot of the Purple Patch athletes will start Q1 leveraging Inside Tracker so that we can have a baseline to define some personal focus, and then at the end of the quarter, going into early Q2, repeat the process to ensure A, there isn't too much fatigue accumulation, but also see the measurable results of those baseline habits that we integrate so that we can say, good, I am, quote, performance ready. Now I'm going to prime it. Now I'm going to drive it to high performance. And so as important as your training goals, we aim for you to exit Q1 with some parallel habits and strategies. We want you to become a master of training management within life, critically important and empowering. And so you should ask yourself, have you got your recipe right where you feel the progression in training, but also control and presence across other aspects of life? And if you typically don't, Q1 is the time to master this. We also want you to have a bedrock of great eating and hydration habits so that you are ready to support the uptick of training that is going to inevitably come and have optimal daily energy. And we want you to equip yourself with measurable insights via Inside Tracker so that we can show you, and you can show yourself, what 12 weeks of focus has delivered in a quantifiable approach. That tastes really good, doesn't it? I've actually seen improvements. And this is the journey. This is our broad approach and guiding method to drive your performance. Now, how we boost this? Yes, there are superpowers. The team. When you become a part of Purple Patch, you're never just coached by one person. You have access to the whole Purple Patch team and all of our associated experts. Because we understand that individuals do best when they enjoy the support and accountability of a team environment, and we actually can draw of collective expertise to help you do better. We know that high performers embrace coaching. They love immersing a part of a team purpose. And we know that when you have a sense of belonging and a purpose that goes beyond yourself, it fuels your individual performance, but also you get to contribute and foster the conditions that support a performance culture. And that's how we become a performance factory of many different people at different levels with different ambitions and goals. And so we don't chase success via individual journeys, even though every individual is enjoying their own journey. We tailor to individual needs, but we optimize through the common practices, mindsets, and culture. You build team, you build social learning, you build community, and we get better results. Support, mentorship, accountability. It is amplified across the board. And that's why all of our coaches, whether they're coaching 10, 12, 15, 20 individual athletes, they all feel like they coach all Purple Patch athletes. That's why we're so invested heavily in community and connectivity of our global athletes. You cannot optimize results on an isolated journey. Don't go it alone. Become a part of something. Lean in. Get more. It's that simple. Q1, a new year. High performance. Your best ever. It begins. We're ready. Are you? Happy holidays, guys. Speak in the new year. Take care. Guys, thanks so much for joining and thank you for listening. I hope that you enjoyed the new format. You can never miss an episode by simply subscribing. Head to the Purple Patch channel of YouTube and you will find it there and you could subscribe. Of course, I'd like to ask you, if you will subscribe, also share it with your friends, and it's really helpful if you leave a nice positive review in the comments. Now, any questions that you have, let me know. Feel free to add a comment and I will try my best to respond and support you on your performance journey. And in fact, as we commence this video podcast experience, if you have any feedback at all, as mentioned earlier in the show, we would love your help in helping us to improve. Simply email us at info@purplepatchfitness.com or leave it in the comments of the show at the Purple Patch page and we will get you dialed in. We'd love constructive feedback. We are in a growth mindset, as we like to call it. And so feel free to share with your friends. But as I said, let's build this together. let's make it something special. It's really fun. We're really trying hard to make it a special experience, and we want to welcome you into the Purple Patch community. With that, I hope you have a great week. Stay healthy, have fun, keep smiling, doing whatever you do. Take care.